The council chamber floated in space like a giant bubble of crystal. Inside, the air shimmered with colors that had no names in human languages. Hana stood in the center of the vast room, her small human form dwarfed by the creatures around her. Some of the council members were as tall as buildings. Others were so tiny they needed special platforms to be seen. Some breathed oxygen like her. Others existed as clouds of gas or patterns of living electricity. She had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Every word of her speech had been checked and rechecked, every gesture practiced until it felt natural. She wore a simple gray suit that covered her from neck to wrists to ankles. Professional, unthreatening. Exactly what Earth's government wanted her to project. Hana began her presentation. She talked about Earth's art and music. She showed holographic images of human cities, of children learning in schools, of doctors healing the sick. She spoke about humanity's desire for peace, for knowledge, for friendship with the other species of the galaxy. The council members listened with the bored patience of beings who had heard similar speeches from hundreds of species before. A few made notes. Most simply waited for her to finish. This was routine for them. Another primitive species asking to join the big kids' table. Then Elder Vrex moved. He was massive. His species had ruled their home system for 20,000 years before humans had even learned to make fire. His scales were black as deep space, each one marked with scars from battles too ancient for human history to record. He had 4 arms, each ending in claws that could crush steel. His eyes glowed red in his reptilian face. Vrex descended from his floating throne. Each step made a sound like thunder in the crystal chamber. The other council members went quiet. When Vrex moved, people paid attention. Hana stood her ground as he approached. She had been trained not to show fear. Her face remained calm, even as this creature of nightmare stopped directly in front of her. He leaned down, bringing his massive head level with hers. She could feel the heat radiating from his body. Then he did something unexpected. With surprising gentleness, he reached out and took her hand. His claw was longer than her entire hand. He turned her palm upward, studying it like a scholar examining an ancient text. One scaled finger traced across her skin. The chamber was so silent that everyone could hear the slight whisper of scale against flesh. When Vrex spoke, his voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. Every species present had translation devices, so they all understood his words. "Soft hands," he said. The words dripped with contempt. "Look at this, council members. Look at these hands that have never known hardship, skin as smooth as a newborn's, no calluses, no scars, no burns." He lifted Hana's hand higher, displaying it to the entire assembly like evidence in a trial. "This is what humanity sends us. A diplomat whose hands have never gripped a weapon in desperation, fingers that have never dug through rubble searching for survivors, palms that have never been burned by plasma fire or frozen in the void of space." Around the chamber, other council members made sounds of agreement. A clicking of mandibles here, a burst of electromagnetic approval there, a rumble of accord from a creature made of living stone. Vrex continued, warming to his subject. "We are survivors, council members. Each of us earned our place here through struggle. We have fought for our species' right to exist. We bear the marks of our battles." He released Hana's hand with a dismissive gesture. "But humanity? They send us someone with soft hands and pretty words. They ask to join our council without understanding what it means to suffer, to sacrifice, to survive against impossible odds." Hana stood perfectly still through all of this. Her expression never changed. She had been trained for insults, expected them even. Let them get it out of their system, her handlers had said. Show no anger, no pride, just patience. Vrex turned to walk away, his point made. The human was soft, weak, unworthy. But as he moved, one of his claws caught on something, a slight resistance. He paused. His claw had hooked on the edge of Hana's sleeve. The fabric had pulled back slightly, revealing her wrist. And on that wrist was something his ancient eyes recognized instantly. A scar. Not just any scar. Vrex's massive body went completely still. The hand that had been moving away from Hana stopped in midair. His red eyes focused with laser intensity on that small mark on her wrist. Slowly, carefully, he reached out again. This time his movements held no contempt, only something that might have been fear. He pushed back her sleeve further, exposing more of her forearm. The mark was distinctive. 4 parallel lines, each about an inch long, crossing over a circular indentation. The tissue was old, healed long ago, but the pattern was unmistakable to anyone who had seen it before. The chamber's silence changed quality. Before it had been the quiet of bored bureaucrats. Now it was the silence of held breath, of shock. Vrex's voice when he spoke again was barely a whisper. But in the perfect acoustics of the crystal chamber, everyone heard, "This mark. It cannot be." One of the council members, an insectoid creature called Tyel, suddenly activated archival systems. Holographic displays sprang to life around the chamber, showing ancient records, images of battles, of creatures with crystalline bodies and too many limbs. The Dakul mark, Tel's translated voice clicked out. The swarm, but that's impossible. Vrex took a step back from Hana. In 12,000 years of leading the council, he had never retreated from anything, but now he moved backward, his eyes never leaving that scar. The siege of Cathara was 800 years ago, he said. His voice shook slightly. No one survives encounters with the Dakul. No one. They consume everything, destroy everything. That mark means you fought them hand to hand, that you were close enough for their claws to touch you. He looked up from her wrist to her face, really looked at her for the first time, saw past the soft appearance to something else beneath. Who are you? The question was almost a demand. Behind Hana, standing quietly against the chamber wall, Captain Doyun finally moved. He was human too, wearing a military uniform that Earth's government had tried to make look as unthreatening as possible. He stepped forward, his boots making quiet sounds on the crystal floor. Elder Vrex, Doyun said, his voice carrying the weight of hard truths. May I have permission to speak? Vrex nodded, still staring at Hana's scar. The official history says humanity's first contact with galactic civilization was 15 years ago, Doyun said. A peaceful encounter with a trading vessel near our outer colonies. That's what we told the galaxy. That's what we wanted you to believe. He moved to stand beside Hana, his hand resting on her shoulder in a gesture of support. The truth is very different. Our first contact was at Cathara. We called it Operation Midnight Garden. 1 ship, 12 crew members. They were exploring what we thought was uninhabited space when they detected massive energy signatures. The holographic displays around the chamber shifted, showing images of a massive fortress world under siege, explosions lighting up the darkness, thousands of ships locked in combat. They found Cathara, Doyun continued. They found your siege. They found species they had never known existed, fighting an enemy beyond comprehension. And they had a choice. Run home and pretend they had seen nothing, or stay and fight. Vrex's eyes never left Hana. They stayed. They stayed, Doyun confirmed. For 3 years, fighting beside species whose names they didn't know, learning languages in the middle of battles, adapting alien weapons because their own weren't strong enough. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter. 11 of them died there. Only Ambassador Hana survived. She fought for 3 years in the tunnels beneath Cathara Fortress. She killed more Dakul than most species see in their nightmares. She saved lives, including, we believe, yours, Elder Vrex. Vrex's massive frame seemed to shrink slightly. His red eyes widened. Memories from 8 centuries ago flooded back. The tunnels. The darkness. The moment when death had him pinned and then suddenly didn't. A small figure in strange armor disappearing into the shadows. You, he whispered. That was you. Hana finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but it carried a weight that made every being in the chamber listen. You wanted to see scars, Elder Vrex. You wanted proof that humanity knows struggle. I could show you more. I have marks from Dakul claws on my back, burns from plasma fire on my legs, frost damage on my feet from when my suit failed in vacuum. I have nightmares that will never stop. I hear the screams of my friends dying in languages I finally learned too late. She pulled her sleeve back down, covering the scar again. But my government sent me here with soft hands because they wanted the galaxy to see us as peaceful, as civilized, as worthy of joining your council through diplomacy, not through the blood we spilled saving your worlds. The chamber remained silent. Every council member was processing this revelation. Humanity had been at Cathara, had fought in the greatest siege in galactic history, had kept it secret for 800 years. Rex slowly lowered himself to one knee. For a being of his age and status, it was a gesture of profound respect. "Forgive me," he said. "I judge by appearance. By assumption, I mocked what I did not understand." Hana looked at him with tired eyes. Eyes that had seen too much, survived too much. "Soft hands are a choice, Elder Vrex," she said quietly, "not a weakness. We could show our scars. We could come to this council as conquerors who saved your fortress world. But we chose to come as diplomats, as friends. We wanted you to accept us for who we are now, not who we had to become to survive." She looked around at all the assembled species. "The question is, can you accept that? Can you accept a species that chooses peace even when they know how to wage war?" He paused. They stayed. 12 humans against a galaxy-consuming threat. They landed on Cathara and offered to help. Nobody understood their language. They did not understand yours. But war has a universal language. They pointed at the Dakul. Then they pointed at their weapons. The defenders understood. The files showed battle reports. Human weapons performing far better than they should have. The crew of the New Dawn adapting with frightening speed. Learning alien technology. Modifying Dakul weapons to use against them. Fighting with tactics that seemed insane but worked. Humans evolved differently than most council species, Doyen explained. You are apex predators. You evolved to dominate your worlds. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most naturally armed. We survive by being stubborn, by adapting, by refusing to quit. He gestured at the tactical displays. More importantly, humans spent our entire history fighting each other. Every type of warfare ever conceived, we tested on ourselves. Guerrilla tactics, psychological operations, asymmetric warfare. We learned to fight enemies stronger, faster and better armed than us because that was always our situation. The holograms showed the New Dawn crew in action, moving through tunnels with deadly efficiency, setting ambushes, using the fortress terrain in ways the Dakul could not predict. They fought like the fortress itself was their weapon. The Dakul had a weakness, Doyen said. Their hive mind made them powerful but predictable. Once you understood their patterns, you could anticipate them. The New Dawn crew realized this. They began operating independently, using tactics that confused the swarm. Hana finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. "They died," she said. "All of them except me. And I remember each death." The holograms showed faces, young humans frozen in time. Engineer Jiwan sealed himself in a fusion reactor to prevent the Dakul from breaching it. He bought us 6 hours. Medical Officer Heyoon refused to leave wounded defenders when her section was overrun. Commander Minho led the final assault on the swarm's central node. I watched him die, buying time for the rest of us to complete the mission. She named them all. 11 names. 11 humans who had traveled to the stars seeking wonder and found only war. Who had stayed when they could have fled. Who had fought beside aliens they had just met and died protecting civilizations they had never known existed. "I survived by chance," Hana said. "Wrong place at the right time. When the central node was destroyed, I was near an access tunnel. I made it to a shuttle, escaped in the chaos as the swarm collapsed." She touched her wrist where the scar lay hidden. "I spent 8 months in cryosleep drifting back to Earth. When I was recovered, my government debriefed me, learned what was out here, made a decision." Doyen took over the explanation. "We could have announced ourselves as the species that helped save Cathara, could have demanded recognition, respect, but our leaders were smart. They understood galactic politics even without meeting you. They knew warrior species respect strength but fear it too." He smiled without humor. "So we hid the truth, created a false first contact story. Peaceful encounter with traitors. We played weak, unthreatening. We thought it would make you more willing to accept us." Elder Vrex was still processing everything. 800 years of believing a lie. 800 years of not knowing humans had fought at his side. Why? he asked. Why reveal the truth now? You could have maintained the deception. Hana looked at him with those tired eyes that had seen too much. Because you demanded to see scars, she said simply. You mocked soft hands. You wanted proof that humanity understands struggle. Well, here is your proof. We bled for you before we even knew you. We died for you before we understood what we were protecting. 11 humans gave their lives so that this council could continue to exist. She stepped closer to Vrex. We wanted to join your council as diplomats, as partners, as equals who come in peace. But if you need us to be warriors to earn respect, then know this. We were warriors before you knew we existed. We were warriors who chose to become diplomats. That choice should mean something. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then Vrex did something unprecedented. He bowed, fully, deeply, a gesture of profound respect rarely given by his species. You saved my life, he said. You saved all our lives. And we never knew. We owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid. But Hana shook her head. We do not want payment. We do not want your debt. We want what we came here for. Membership in the council. Partnership. The chance to build a galaxy where species work together instead of conquering each other. She looked around at all the assembled species. The question remains. Can you accept us not as warriors but as people who chose peace? Can you accept that soft hands are stronger than scarred ones because they represent choice rather than necessity? He paused. They stayed. 12 humans against a galaxy-consuming threat. They landed on Cathara and offered to help. Nobody understood their language. They did not understand yours. But war has a universal language. They pointed at the Dakul. Then they pointed at their weapons. The defenders understood. The files showed battle reports. Human weapons performing far better than they should have. The crew of the New Dawn adapting with frightening speed. Learning alien technology. Modifying Dakul weapons to use against them. Fighting with tactics that seemed insane but worked. Humans evolved differently than most council species, Doyen explained. You are apex predators. You evolved to dominate your worlds. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We are not the strongest. Not the fastest. Not the most naturally armed. We survive by being stubborn. By adapting. By refusing to quit. He gestured at the tactical displays. More importantly, humans spent our entire history fighting each other. Every type of warfare ever conceived, we tested on ourselves. Guerrilla tactics, psychological operations, asymmetric warfare. We learned to fight enemies stronger, faster, and better armed than us because that was always our situation. The holograms showed the New Dawn crew in action, moving through tunnels with deadly efficiency, setting ambushes, using the fortress terrain in ways the Dakul could not predict. They fought like the fortress itself was their weapon. The Dakul had a weakness, Doyen said. Their hive mind made them powerful but predictable. Once you understood their patterns, you could anticipate them. The New Dawn crew realized this. They began operating independently, using tactics that confused the swarm. Hana finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. They died, she said. All of them except me. And I remember each death. The holograms showed faces, young humans frozen in time. Engineer Jiwan sealed himself in a fusion reactor to prevent the Dakul from breaching it. He bought us 6 hours. Medical Officer Heyoon refused to leave wounded defenders when her section was overrun. Commander Minho led the final assault on the swarm's central node. I watched him die, buying time for the rest of us to complete the mission. She named them all. 11 names. 11 humans who had traveled to the stars seeking wonder and found only war. Who had stayed when they could have fled. Who had fought beside aliens they had just met and died protecting civilizations they had never known existed. I survived by chance, Hana said. Wrong place at the right time. When the central node was destroyed, I was near an access tunnel. I made it to a shuttle, escaped in the chaos as the swarm collapsed. She touched her wrist where the scar lay hidden. I spent 8 months in cryosleep drifting back to Earth. When I was recovered, my government debriefed me, learned what was out here, made a decision. Doyen took over the explanation. We could have announced ourselves as the species that helped save Cathara, could have demanded recognition, respect, but our leaders were smart. They understood galactic politics even without meeting you. They knew warrior species respect strength but fear it too. He smiled without humor. So we hid the truth, created a false first contact story. Peaceful encounter with traitors. We played weak. unthreatening. We thought it would make you more willing to accept us. Elder Vrex was still processing everything. 800 years of believing a lie. 800 years of not knowing humans had fought at his side. Why? He asked. Why reveal the truth now? You could have maintained the deception. Hana looked at him with those tired eyes that had seen too much. Because you demanded to see scars, she said simply. You mocked soft hands. You wanted proof that humanity understands struggle. Well, here is your proof. We bled for you before we even knew you. We died for you before we understood what we were protecting. 11 humans gave their lives so that this council could continue to exist. She stepped closer to Vrex. We wanted to join your council as diplomats, as partners, as equals who come in peace. But if you need us to be warriors to earn respect, then know this. We were warriors before you knew we existed. We were warriors who chose to become diplomats. That choice should mean something. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then Vrex did something unprecedented. He bowed, fully, deeply, a gesture of profound respect rarely given by his species. You saved my life, he said. You saved all our lives. And we never knew. We owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid. But Hana shook her head. We do not want payment. We do not want your debt. We want what we came here for. Membership in the council. Partnership. The chance to build a galaxy where species work together instead of conquering each other. She looked around at all the assembled species. The question remains. Can you accept us not as warriors but as people who chose peace? Can you accept that soft hands are stronger than scarred ones because they represent choice rather than necessity? The council chamber had changed. What had been a formal hearing had become something deeper, more personal. The assembled species no longer looked at Hana as a supplicant. They looked at her as a mystery that needed to be understood. Elder Vrex gestured toward the center of the chamber. An invitation, or perhaps a challenge, tell us, he said. Tell us what really happened at Cathara. Not the official reports, not the tactical summaries. Tell us what it was like for your crew. For you. Hana stood silent for a moment. Behind her, Captain Doyen gave a small nod of encouragement. She had kept these memories locked away for so long, shared them with so few, but if the council needed to understand humanity, they needed to understand this. She began to speak. I was 26 years old when the New Dawn detected the energy signatures. We were 3 months into our mission. Everything had been routine, mapping star systems, taking samples, looking for planets suitable for colonies. We were scientists playing at being explorers. Her voice was steady but distant, as if she was seeing everything again. Then we jumped into the Cathara system and found hell waiting for us. Thousands of ships fighting, weapons that could crack planets. We watched a moon get destroyed. Just gone, shattered into dust and debris. Our instruments could not make sense of what we were seeing. She paused, remembering. Commander Minho called a vote. That was how we did things then. Democracy. Everyone gets a say. The question was simple, do we stay or do we run? We were not soldiers. Not really. Earth had been at peace for 60 years. We had basic weapons training, but nothing like this. Hana looked around at the council members. The vote was unanimous. 12 votes to stay. Not because we were brave. Not because we understood what we were getting into. We stayed because people were dying, and we were people who helped. It was that simple. She described landing on Cathara. The fortress commanders had been confused by the New Dawn. A ship of unknown design approaching in the middle of a siege. They had nearly fired on it, but Minho had broadcast on every frequency, showing their weapons, showing their willingness to fight. Nobody could understand our language. We could not understand theirs. But Engineer Jiwan was a genius with communication systems. He built translation devices from pieces of destroyed Dakul technology. They were rough, imperfect, but they worked well enough to say, we are here to help. Show us how to fight. The council members listened intently. This was a side of warfare they rarely considered. The logistics, the communication problems, the small human details that made the difference between success and failure. The first month was learning. Hana continued. Learning your languages. Learning your weapons. Learning what the Dakul were. We studied every battle record we could access. Watched recordings of swarm attacks. We started to see patterns. She explained what the New Dawn crew had realized. The Dakul hive mind was powerful but inflexible. Once committed to a tactic, the swarm would follow it completely. They were like water flowing downhill, always taking the path of least resistance, always predictable if you understood the terrain. Your species fight like apex predators, Hana said, looking at Vrex. You fight with strength and courage. Head-on battles. Glorious charges. It is in your nature. But humans? We evolved hunting animals faster and stronger than us. We learned to be patient, to track, to wait for the perfect moment. The holograms activated again, showing tactical displays, human fighting styles compared to council species. The differences were stark. We did not fight the swarm in open battle. We set traps. We used the fortress tunnels as weapons. We learned to move silently. We studied how the Dakul communicated with their hive nodes and found ways to disrupt them. We turned their strengths into weaknesses. Captain Doyen added context. Humans have fought each other for thousands of years. We have tried every possible way to kill each other. Conventional warfare, guerrilla warfare, psychological warfare, chemical, biological, nuclear. We tested it all on ourselves first. He pulled up more files. Human military history, wars spanning centuries, tactics refined through endless conflict. Most council species became dominant on their worlds and then stopped fighting. Humans never stopped. We could not afford to. We were never the apex predator. We had to be smarter, more adaptable, more willing to do whatever was necessary to survive. Hana's voice grew quieter. The cost was terrible. We learned quickly, but not quickly enough. Engineer G1 died in the 3rd month. A swarm breakthrough threatened the fortress power core. He sealed himself inside and manually triggered an overload that destroyed the attacking force. We lost containment on that entire section. His body was never recovered. The chamber was silent except for her voice. Medical Officer Heian was next. 6 months into the siege, she was treating wounded in a field hospital when the swarm broke through. She could have evacuated. We were screaming at her over communications to run. She refused. Stayed with patients who could not be moved. She held her position for 40 minutes while the wounded were carried out one by one. When the Dakul finally reached her, she detonated the medical supplies. The explosion killed her and the entire swarm unit. Hana named them all, spoke of how each had died. Security Officer Minsu held a corridor for 8 hours against continuous assault. Pilot Bora crashed her shuttle into a swarm command node when her weapons failed. Scientist Ara decoded Dakul communications and died when they adapted and tracked her signal. Each death taught them something. Each sacrifice bought time, bought knowledge, bought survival for others. By the final year, only 3 of us remained. Commander Minho, Communications Specialist Young, and me. We had learned so much, become so efficient at killing Dakul. But we were tired. So tired, she described the last days. The fortress was failing. Defenses collapsed. Evacuation plans were being made. The council species prepared for a final stand before retreating and abandoning Cathara and the systems beyond it. Then Gyeong found it. The swarm's central processing node, hidden deep in the fortress substructure. The Dakul had been burrowing beneath us the entire time, placing their hive brain under our feet. If we could destroy it, we could end the siege. Hana's hands clenched unconsciously. Minho made the plan. It required someone to place charges directly on the node while the other 2 created a diversion. The person placing the charges would not make it out. There would be no time. We all knew it. She looked at Elder Vrex. That was when I found you. I was moving through the tunnels to reach the node when I heard fighting. I saw you pinned by a Dakul warrior. I did not know who you were. Did not know your importance. I just saw someone who needed help. The memory was vivid in her mind. The dark tunnel. The massive reptilian warrior covered in his own blood. The crystalline horror about to deliver the killing blow. Her weapon rising. The shot. The Dakul falling. I could not stay. The mission mattered more than one life. More than any life. I checked that you would survive and kept moving. I heard you calling after me, but I did not stop. Vrex's voice was rough with emotion. I tried to follow, tried to help, but my wounds were too severe. I could only listen on the communications as your team made their assault. Hana nodded. Minho insisted he would place the charges. He was the commander. It was his responsibility. Gyeong and I were to create the diversion. We argued, wasted precious minutes arguing. Finally, he pulled rank, ordered us to move. Her voice cracked slightly. We created a hell of a diversion. drew every Dakul in that sector toward us. I heard Minho over the radio, counting down, placing the charges. He was humming, this old Earth song. He always hummed when he was concentrating. The tears came then. Hana did not try to hide them. The swarm found him before he could activate the charges remotely. We heard the fight over the radio, heard him laughing, making jokes even while dying. Then silence. Then the explosion. She wiped her eyes. The swarm collapsed immediately. Their coordination failed. Warriors began fighting each other. The siege broke within hours. Gyeong and I made it to an access tunnel. We were running when a section collapsed. Debris everywhere. She pushed me through a gap, and then the tunnel came down on her. I tried to dig her out, tried so hard, but the swarm was reforming, adapting. I had to run. Hana touched her wrist where the scar lay. I got this getting out. A Dakul caught me at the shuttle. Its claws got my wrist. I killed it and launched. Spent 8 months in cryosleep with nothing but my thoughts and the memory of everyone I had lost. The council chamber remained absolutely silent. Every being present understood loss, understood sacrifice. But this was different. These were not warriors trained from birth. These were explorers who became soldiers because there was no one else. Elder Vrex spoke, his voice gentle. When you returned to Earth, why did your government hide this? Why not announce humanity's role in saving Cathara? Hana smiled bitterly. Because they were smart. My debriefing taught them about galactic civilization, about warrior cultures that respect strength but fear threats. They realized that announcing ourselves as the species that helped win at Cathara would make us seem dangerous, potentially hostile. Captain Doyen explained further. Humanity had just learned we were not alone. We were primitive compared to the council species. We had no allies, no friends, no understanding of galactic politics. Our leaders made a calculated decision. Hide our capabilities, play weak, gain acceptance through diplomacy rather than force. He looked at Hana with respect. They sent the only survivor of Cathara as our ambassador, the one person who knew the truth, who understood what was really out here, who had already proven she could work with alien species under impossible circumstances. Hana met Vrex's gaze. So yes, Elder Vrex, my hands are soft. I chose to make them soft. I could have kept fighting, could have stayed with the military, but I chose diplomacy. I chose to represent humanity as peaceful explorers rather than as warriors, because I have seen enough war to last 1,000 lifetimes. She pulled back her sleeves, revealing other scars. Burns, cuts, marks from a dozen different injuries. But if you need proof that humanity understands struggle, here it is. Written on my body. Written in the memories that wake me screaming. Written in the names of 11 people who will never see Earth again. She covered the scars again. We fought for you before we knew you. We died for you before we understood what we were protecting. We saved your fortress and your species and never asked for recognition. And then we chose to approach you as friends rather than as saviors owed a debt. Her voice grew stronger. That choice should mean something. The fact that we could be warriors but chose to be diplomats should tell you something about humanity. We are not weak because we seek peace. We are strong enough to choose peace even when we know how to wage war. Observer Tail's voice clicked through translation devices. The question becomes, can we trust a species that hides its true nature, that deceives us about their capabilities? Hana turned to the insectoid archivist. We did not deceive you about who we are. We are exactly who we presented ourselves to be. A species that values peace, knowledge, and cooperation. The fact that we are also capable of violence when necessary does not change that. Every species in this council has that capability. The difference is we chose not to lead with it. She looked around at all the assembled council members. You judge species by their scars, by their battle honors, by their capacity for violence. But humanity asks, should not species also be judged by their restraint, by their wisdom, by their choice to seek peaceful solutions even when they have the power to take what they want? The chamber filled with discussion. Some council members agreed, others remained skeptical. The revelation had shaken their understanding. forced them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about humanity. Elder Vrex finally stood, his massive form commanding attention. "You saved my life," he said. "You and your crew saved this council. That cannot be denied. But this revelation creates more questions than answers. We need time to consider, to understand what humanity truly is." He looked at Hana with something approaching respect. "You asked if we can accept a species that chooses peace. I say we must first determine if we can trust a species skilled enough to hide their true nature for 8 centuries. This council will reconvene with a test, a challenge that will reveal humanity's true character." Hana felt her stomach tighten. A test. This was not the outcome they had hoped for, but it was better than outright rejection. "What kind of test?" she asked. Vrex's smile showed teeth. "One that cannot be solved with weapons or deception. One that will show us who humanity truly is when force is not an option."